Welcome back. We're in chapter 4 of Good to Great. Just to remember, we're going through the leadership development curriculum in the diocese. This is all designed to help us with leadership, discipleship, culture and team. And at the moment we're going through Good to Great, not because we love the corporate sector and we're obsessed with the corporate sector, but because we want to be really good at what we do, and we find a whole lot of the teaching here really interesting. Just remember, this book here actually has a flow. It has a timeline, I suppose. So it says you start with leadership, then you get the right people, first people, then what? So you got the right people. And now we come to this chapter, which is chapter 4, which is called Confront the Brutal Facts chapter. Now again, I encourage, if you haven't read the chapter, at least read the grey boxes and have the conversation in your group about what stood out to you from the grey summary box. But a couple of things from this chapter that I think is particularly relevant for us is the Stockdale principle. Remember, the chapter talks about this military leader who was imprisoned in a prisoner of war camp and actually managed to survive and come out relatively, although having horrendous imprisonment and some torture, managed to relatively come out whole, and actually probably in some senses was able to build on that experience. And when he analysed what was the critical thing for him, it was the ability to name and live in the brutal reality, and then to proclaim hope into that situation. And I think that is critical for us as Christian leaders at this time. So many Christian leaders, I have these conversations, and they won't actually name their brutal reality. For some reason, we kind of feel like, I think, that if we actually talk about our brutal reality, it's going to discourage our people or discourage ourselves. So people start to sort of have those conversations. Oh, my church isn't going well, but we're trying our best. And we get close to having the conversation, and then we'll back away. And so we end up in this awful no man's land where we're not actually talking about reality. We're not actually talking about what's really happening. So I can say it's critical as Christian leaders that we actually can name our brutal reality in all its challenges. But then the challenge as a leader is, and we have to be able to proclaim hope into that. And I think actually many of us struggle to do that, because I actually don't know if we really believe there is hope. It's funny that, because for me, the hope is not based on my ability or my deep belief in the Anglican Church. For me, it's a fundamental hope that God is God, and God always desires to flourish His people at all times and all places. So actually, God wants to flourish this church. The church is there for God to be able to flourish it if we can do what we need to do. So my deep hope is not in us, but is in God. But at the same time, I have this, I've got to be able to name our stark reality. So can I encourage us as leaders that you need to be able to live in that? Are you naming the stark reality? Are you giving space for those conversations? But at the same time, do you really believe that God is turning up, can turn up, and that this will change? If you can't do both of those, can I encourage you, you have work to do. You have work to do. The interesting thing too is, some people say, oh, well, my people, my team can't handle the brutal facts. Well, I think it goes back to the chapter before. If you haven't got the right people in the room, you can't do the brutal facts conversation. But if you have the right people in the room and you've formed the right team, then actually they'll be able to have the brutal facts conversation. And you know what? People often think that when we name the brutal facts, it's going to be demoralizing. For me, it's the exact opposite. Once I know the brutal facts and I know how bad it is, for me, I find that incredibly motivating. Like, I want to give my life for climbing a high mountain, not a sandhill. So actually bring it on. And again, one of my favourite sayings is from I think it was Hudson Taylor, who said, first it was impossible, then it was difficult, then it was done. And our brutal reality is, it's hard. It is really hard. And God is turning up, and we are going to lead the people through this. But we can't lead them through it if we're acting like we're living in a fantasy land. We need to be able to name our reality our realities of dysfunction, our realities of decline, our realities of mismanagement. Whatever our realities are, we need to be able to name them. But not because we stop there, but because we grow from there. So can I encourage you to read this chapter, to imbibe this chapter, to have the courage to be able to hold those conversations with the right people.